Hello everybody, it's Non-C News here, and today we've gotten a lot of breaking dates today. And the first news we'll be talking about today is coming from the Russian Federation. But I should add that before we actually get into the news today, I am just going to really quickly spend a couple minutes talking about the news in the previous 2 days, or the previous 3 days. And more specifically, that news is going to be the Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump phone conversation. So on July the 3rd, 2025, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, and the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, held their sixth publicly acknowledged phone call between each other. The sixth publicly acknowledged phone call ever since Trump returned to the White House earlier this year on his second term. So, according to the call lasted nearly an hour and was described as frank and constructive by the Kremlin. So the two leaders discussed the Ukrainian conflict. Donald Trump urged Putin to end the war in Ukraine, while Putin emphasized that Russia would not back down from its goals in Ukraine, emphasizing the need to address the root causes of the conflict, which Moscow links to Ukraine's potential NATO membership. The two leaders also discussed and put their eyes on Iran and the broader Middle East issue. The leaders discussed the situation in Iran and the broader Middle East. Putin emphasized the need to resolve all differences in the region, in Iran and the Middle East, through political and diplomatic means, and Donald Trump agreed. The two leaders also discussed Russian and US relations. The call also covered broader US and Russian relations, though specific details were not disclosed. The call came shortly after the US suspended some weapons shipments to Ukraine, a move that was reportedly discussed during the conversation. But just today, at the time of recording this, and that is the 7th of July, Trump later made some later statements about his phone call. So Trump later stated that he didn't make any progress on ending the war in Ukraine during the call, and later Trump called Putin a professional and acknowledged Russia that it has successfully coped with Western and American sanctions. So very interesting news. And again, before we get into the main news today, after the phone conversation between Putin and Trump also held a phone call with the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. So again, following the July 3rd, 2025 call between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, Presidents Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky held a significant discussion on July the 4th, which was Independence Day for America, 2025. The call focused on Ukraine's defense needs and boosting Ukraine's capabilities. So the key points from the Trump and Zelensky call was air defense enhancements. The leaders discussed strategies to strengthen Ukraine's air defense capabilities in response to intensified Russian missile and drone assaults on Ukraine. Joint defense production. They explored the possibilities of joint arm productions initiatives to bolster Ukraine's defense industry and reduce reliance on external supplies. Continued US support. President Zelensky expressed gratitude for the approximately $185 billion in US aid, emphasizing its crucial role in safeguarding Ukrainian sovereignty. Despite the positive dialogue, no immediate commitments were made regarding on the resumption of US military aid, which has been paused due to concerns over depleted US stockpiles. So that was just the news that I really quickly wanted to go over, but now let's actually get into the news, what's been going on today. So the first news actually coming today is first coming from the Russian Federation, where the Russian Federation officially recognizes the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, so the Taliban in charge of Afghanistan. So in a significant development, the Russian ambassador to Afghanistan has officially announced that the Russian Federation recognizes the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Thus, Russia is the first country in the world, before China or even before Iran, and Pakistan to legitimize the Taliban government's grip over Afghanistan. So Russia is the first country in the world so far to recognize the Taliban in charge of Afghanistan. So perhaps in the maybe in a few months we can probably see an improved economic relationship between Russia and Afghanistan. So I'll keep you updated on that. And furthermore, we've also got some news today that North Korea plans to send an additional 25 to perhaps 30,000 troops to Russia in the coming months. This is according to the Ukrainian intelligence as reported by CNN. The assessment is based on analysts of ship and aircraft movement. So Ukraine believes there is a high probability that these forces will be deployed directly in Ukraine, not just within Russian territory, and fighting the Ukrainian forces in the Kursk region. So, according to CNN, perhaps in the next few months, North Korea will deploy 25 to 30,000 troops to perhaps fight in Ukraine itself. So, very interesting news. And while actually on the topic of Ukraine, we've also got some news today coming from Ukraine and the United States. So if you remember in the previous video, we talked about how the United States froze some armed deliveries to Ukraine. So these armed deliveries include anti-air missiles and 155mm artillery shells that Ukraine desperately needs. So according to the United States froze armed deliveries not only to Ukraine, a White House spokesman told CBS News. We've also got news today that according to the spy chief of Ukraine, Ukraine can't turn the tide on the battlefield. Ukraine's top military intelligence official, Kirill Budanov, has admitted that Ukraine is unable to reverse Russian military gains in the Donetsk region and in the Kharkiv and Sumy regions in the past couple of months. We've also got news today that Ukrainian defense companies will open production in Denmark. Denmark has become the first country to which Ukraine exports its own defense technologies for production, scaling, and supply to the Ukrainian army. So Denmark and Ukraine have just signed a special agreement that allows Ukrainian companies to go to Denmark and set up shop in Denmark and produce Ukrainian equipment in Denmark, so Russia can't actually bomb Denmark and destroy the factories. So Ukraine will be opening shop in Denmark. And furthermore, we've also got some news that the UK Defence Secretary John Healey has also announced that London, so England, will drastically escalate drone deliveries to Ukraine, pledging to supply 10 times more unmanned systems than in previous years. So London will be stepping up its game on drone deliveries to the Ukrainian armed forces, and I'll of course keep you updated on that. The next news we got today is coming from Germany. So we've got news that Germany reportedly plans to acquire up to 1,000 Leopard 2 tanks and 2,500 Boxer armoured vehicles to equip 7 NATO brigades over the next decade, with costs estimated at 25 billion euros. So, as Germany is now reamping and remodernizing its armed forces, Germany reportedly plans to acquire up to 1,000 Leopard 2 tanks and again 2,500 Boxer armoured vehicles to equip 7 NATO brigades over the next decade to, I quote, try to deter Russian aggression onto NATO. And furthermore, we've also got some breaking news today from Germany that Germany unveils voluntary 6-month military service to bolster defence. So Germany plans to introduce a voluntary 6-month military service program to strengthen its reserve forces amid concerns over Russia, according to the news agency's Reuters. So this new German initiative, which is the voluntary 6-month military service package, led by the German defense minister, aims to increase the armed forces of Germany from 180,000 armed forces troops to 260,000 troops, and double the 100,000 reservists of Germany. Recruits will take on roles like guard duties, with a potential draft if volunteer numbers fall short. So this new law is expected to pass by August 2025, with training starting in May 2026. And furthermore, the next news we want today is coming from the United Kingdom. So we've got news according to Sky News outlet that the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer could be on his way out. So the Labour Party, according to Sky News, is demoralised and in despair. Just a year after taking power, Sky News has reported that the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer could be ousted by next May if his Labour Party continues to perform poorly. So that is according to Sky News. We've also got some breaking news today coming from the United Kingdom. That's the UK Halts Eurofighter Typhoon production for the first time in decades. The United Kingdom has officially stopped production of the Eurofighter Typhoon on its territory, a major shift not seen in decades. The final Typhoon jet from the Qatari order is nearly completed, and no new orders are currently planned. London has effectively phased out the Typhoon Eurojet in favour of the US-built 5th-generation F-35A Lightning II jet, which has the added capabilities of delivering nuclear weapons. And furthermore, the next news we've got today is coming from Israel. So we've gotten some news today that's the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has just landed in Washington DC, and where he will be meeting the President of the United States Donald Trump and have dinner with him tomorrow at the White House. So a lot of people are saying that the Prime Minister of Israel is arriving at the White House to celebrate their victory over Iran with the United States, and to try and draft up a document to the end of the war in Gaza. So I'll keep you updated on the Israeli Prime Minister's visit to Washington DC, but most likely it's going to be a celebration of the American and Israeli victory over Iran in disabling or setting back the Iranian nuclear power plant a couple years, and two, to discuss ending the war in Gaza. So again, I'll keep you updated on that. And furthermore, the last news we've gotten from Israel today is that the Israeli Defense Forces have carried out a series of airstrikes on Yemeni, Houthi-controlled Yemeni territory, firing about 60 munition bombs. So the port of Hodeidah, this port here, this major Yemeni Houthi port here, was targeted, as well as Ras Issa, this port here, and Al Savif port here was also targeted, as well as the oil refinery here. So Israel carried out 60 munition strikes all across Yemen's ports, or the Houthi Yemeni-controlled ports. So according to the Israeli Defense Minister, the Houthis will pay a high price, adding that Yemen's laws are the same laws that Iran has. So very interesting news. So again, Israel has targeted 3 major Houthi-controlled ports, and according to the Israeli Defense Forces, they hit ports and also infrastructure and energy and oil refineries of the Yemen Houthi territory here. So very interesting news. The next news we got today is coming from Rwanda. So, if you remember, probably a week ago now, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo signed a historic peace agreement in Washington. So, the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda signed a landmark peace agreement on June the 27th, 2025, in Washington D.C., hosted by the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The deal aimed to end the conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, focusing on territorial integrity, disarmament, and regional stability. And it seems that this treaty seems to have worked. So just today we've got news according to local Congolese outlets. It says that fighting across the front in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo has stopped. So with the US brokered ceasefire in place, the territorial control between the DRC military and the M23 Rwandan-backed forces has froze along the current front lines. Even though the M23 controls 12,750 square kilometers of Congolese territory, that's about 48% of the size of Rwanda. Some of the major towns and cities the group captured included, obviously, Goma and other major cities that the M23 Rwandan-backed forces managed to capture, but the ceasefire does not demand a withdrawal from the Rwandan armed forces from the DRC. So, even though it seems that the fighting between the M23 forces, the M23 Rwandan-backed forces, has stopped between the Congolese and the Rwandan forces, the ceasefire that the Americans managed to pull off does not require the Rwandan-backed forces to actually go back to Rwanda. So it seems that they might stay, we don't know, but according to the recent news we've gotten, fighting has come to a close, there's no more bullets being shot, and we'll just see what happens here in Africa there. And furthermore, the next news we've got today is coming from China and Taiwan. So if you can see this image here in your bottom left corner, this image shows us the recent Chinese military activity around Taiwan. So according to the Taiwanese Ministry of Defense, a total of 496 Chinese aircraft were detected around Taiwan. And also 348 of this 496 aircraft, so 348 aircraft actually crossed the median line, which is this red line here, which is practically Taiwan's airspace. So 348 Chinese aircraft crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait. So, and also, according to the source, over 210 Chinese warships were also detected around Taiwan as well. So it seems that every year we are seeing an increased presence of China around the island nation of Taiwan. So we'll just have to see what happens here. But every year, and it seems every month, we are seeing an increased amount of Chinese military presence around the island. Again, just last month, Taiwan detected over nearly 500 fighter jets around Taiwan. 350 entered its airspace, literally, and 210 naval warships were also detected around the island. And furthermore, the next news we've got today is coming from the United States. And probably one of the biggest news coming from the United States is that Donald Trump officially signs his big, beautiful bill into law. So, Donald Trump has officially signed the big, beautiful bill into law on July the 4th, 2025, on American Independence Day. And here is kind of a quick breakdown of what's in President Donald Trump's one big, beautiful bill signed into law on July the 4th. So, what's in the big beautiful bill? A $46 billion for Trump's border wall, We've also gotten some news that it will also have $100 billion for the ICE through 2029, an extension of Trump's 2017 tax cuts, and an end to green energy initiatives. But with this, Donald Trump has also in the bill put in military spending increase, so it boosts defense spending by $158 billion. Space programs advocates for $10 billion for Mars missions and $325 million to decommission the International Space Station. Missile defense, so obviously the big Golden Dome missile defense initiative with a $25 billion investment. And obviously, with all of these pretty good stuff in the bill, obviously the United States has to pay for this. So there's been some news that the projected revenue impact of this big beautiful bill is expected to have a loss of a 4.5 trillion revenue loss and a 3.3 trillion increase in federal deficits over the next 10 years. But that is practically the overall I guess blurb of the American Big Beautiful Bill. And with this now passage of the Big Beautiful Bill, Elon Musk officially launches the America Party. So Elon Musk released on X that by a factor of 2 to 1, you want a new political party and you shall have it. When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the American Party is formed to give you back your freedom. So Elon Musk has officially launched the American Party in a direct result of Donald Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. Elon Musk believes that this Big Beautiful Bill will bankrupt the United States. Therefore, Elon Musk is now officially launching the America First Party. So obviously Donald Trump has called this stupid. He says that Elon Musk is going crazy again. So very interesting news. The next news we've got today is coming from Brazil. So we've got news that the 17th Brics Summit took place in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil on July the 6th to July the 7th, 2025. Under Brazil's presidency. Here is a concise breakthrough and overview of the summit. So, the theme of this Brics Summit was strengthening global South cooperation for more inclusive and sustainable governance. The host of the summit was, of course, Brazil, holding the Brics presidency for 2025. There were a lot of participants in this summit. Leaders from 11 full members and 10 partner countries, including Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Indonesia, and the UAE were present. So key highlights of the summit was the emphasis on reforming global governance institutions like the UN Security Council, the IMF, and the World Bank to better represent emerging economies, climate action, commitment to environmental sustainability with discussions on forests and funding through the BRICS New Development Bank. Alternative payment systems. There was a lot of people discussing reducing dependence on the US dollar in international trade, exploring alternative payment mechanisms, technology and health. There was a focus on artificial intelligence and global health initiatives. And furthermore, what is the outcome of the summit? So one, if you can see here in your bottom left corner, this document published by Brazil. One being the serious concerns about the rise on unilateral tariffs, especially from the United States. Two, condemning military strikes against Iran, so condemning the United States again. Three, calling for the unconditional Gaza ceasefire. Four, welcoming Indonesia as a full BRICS member. And five, condemning the Bryansk-Kursk railway bridge attacks. So furthermore, as a direct result of the BRICS summit, Donald J. Trump posted on social media that the idea that the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, and they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. So if BRICS decides to make its own currency and move away from the United States dollar, the American president has threatened 100% tariffs on BRICS nations, and that means India, China, Russia, I believe now Indonesia, and many other countries around the world. But that is all the news I actually have for you today. I am Non-Scene News. I'll try and provide you news that medias around the world do not show you. I do these videos hopefully daily, so consider subscribing and liking. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.